they're talking about a revolution sounds? Don't you know they're talking about a revolution sounds? While they're standing in the welfare lines, crying on the doorsteps of those armies of salvation, wasting time in the unemployment lines, sitting around waiting for a promotion. Don't you know they're talking about a revolution sounds? Poor people gonna rise up and get their share. Poor people gonna rise up and take what's theirs. Did you know you better run, 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 run? Oh, I said you better run, 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 run. Don't you know they're talking about a revolution sounds? Finally the tables are starting to turn, talking about a revolution. Finally the tables are starting to turn.
Hi, Katie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking time to have, I like to call it coffee talk, but
Yeah.
to, come on and introduce yourself and talk to us about music therapy and the benefits while we're drinking coffee.
Yeah.
Right?
Does Diet Coke count? Because that's
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Caffeine's caffeine any way we can get it.
Yes. Well, I am glad to be here.
Thank you. Did you have a nice Thanksgiving?
We did. It's funny. I cannot get over just every year. It just seems like the kids grow that much more. It's almost like you just wish you could like kind of slow it down a little bit and just embrace every minute of them. But I just can't believe how big everybody's getting so fast. How about you guys?
Oh, I know. Same. Our journey obviously is a little bit different. And what I see is Colin is so calm and happy. He had a really good day yesterday.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And for people not in the autism world, that might sound a little like, maybe you don't understand that statement, right? But
right.
In our world, Colin and his dearest peers,
yeah,
it'll sit still very long. Their body is a very hard time regulating, and it's hard for them to sit still and just be, whereas you and I could just like chill and fall asleep practically everywhere or anywhere, right? So he he had a nice day. He ate a lot, which was also a win.
That's
and
wonderful.
Then he just really just relaxed and was just happy. And it so that's huge. When I think back of previous years of it being like a nonstop whirlwind and getting up and taking a bite and getting back up, you know what I mean? So it was good. And I am obsessed with the weather because I want to live at the beach so badly. And this is the next best thing, having a very mild November.
Yes, that was the other piece of it was, and what isn't it like? It was a perfect day. Like it was a beautiful day.
Okay, well, why don't you just introduce yourself to our listeners and, just give us a little introduction on your background and what you do. And
okay. So my name is Katie Eschleman. I always say that, for the past 2 decades, I've actually been Miss Katie, which is my favorite title to go by ever. I am a music therapist. I have a master's degree from Drexel. And I've pretty much spent 90% of my career working with children with special needs ranging from, children on the spectrum, as well as children with cerebral palsy, spina bifida, so neuromuscular disorders as well. I've spent some time working with adults with special needs as well. My joy as a music therapist comes from being Miss Katie.
Yeah.
I've spent a majority of my career also in the school system, whether it be in private school, in non-public school, or being brought in as a subcontractor for into a public school. And I've been really fortunate that, it's funny, I say 2 decades of a career of being Miss Katie seems like, it's like mind blowing to me to think it's been that long. But the field of music therapy over the past 10, 15 years, it has evolved so much from when I first started in the field that I think that's why every day it always feels like a new adventure. There doesn't feel like it's like, oh, I've been doing this forever. It's every day brings me a new adventure, whether it's with the kids that I'm working with or the research that's been published or what we're learning about music and the brain. So that's me in a nutshell.
There's no such thing as this job being redundant. It's a new, beautiful experience every day.
Yes. I mean, and I can understand that, we all experience certain, certain burnout in careers or, and I'm sure we hear that with a lot of different places. But for me, every day is a new adventure.
Yeah.
Every day is a new, and it's interesting if there comes a time that it becomes redundant, it's simply an indication to me that, oh, maybe it's time to look at some new music, or maybe it's time to look at another strategy. So if there is a redundancy, it's something that's on myself that says, oh, maybe it's time to dive into something new. And there's plenty to dive into. I mean, we know how extensive, unending the music world is.
Right. So it's really just a profession. Obviously, it's so fulfilling for you as a therapist, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It allows you to tap into your creative self literally every day.
Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I was joking with family yesterday that I take songs that and I get to recreate them every day. And I feel like that is like, yes, I get to tap into that creativity to help a child get to a place that we want to see them grow and evolve. But I also, as a musician, that's also very fulfilling for me as well. Like, wow, that worked.
I bet.
Yep.
So just before we move forward, just a couple quick questions to dig a little bit further into your background. So you are a mom, and did you bring your music therapy into your kids' worlds while they were growing up? I'm sure even without having delays,
Yep.
there's a way to, bring that into any young child's development.
So part of the reason that my career took the trajectory that it has is my middle daughter, who is now 17, going to be 17, at 2 was diagnosed with a childhood apraxia of speech. So basically, her brain knew what to say, and it would kind of hit a pothole, and she couldn't organize the articulators in her mouth to get it out. So we started singing, and at that time, I didn't have quite the research background that I do now on music and articulation, but it very much supported my daughter. In fact, I wrote CDs for music for early childhood speech development. But yeah, so it was very much, music play was always something we did. We were always singing and we were always doing that kind of thing. But like I said, when my daughter's diagnosis came through, that's when I kind of delved a lot deeper into how can we use music to help her. And that really changed, like I said, the trajectory of my career.
Okay. That's wonderful. And obviously was so very helpful for her, which is, huge success story. And then the only other thing I wanted to bring up about your background, because we've had conversations in the past, and didn't you tell me that you had an interest in either theater or musicals initially?
Yes.
I was just curious if you could talk about that for a minute, because I would love to know more.
So when I so when I initially went to college, I actually I have an undergrad in music, because my life was going to go one of two ways. I was going to star on Broadway, or I was going to become a music therapist. And after I graduated, I had a bachelor's in music, and I was like, oh, what do you do with that? And I started working in a school for children with special needs, as a teacher's assistant. And I used to run circle time because I was the music lady. I was the girl who went to school for music. And one day I took the day off to go into New York City for a cattle call for Rent. That's when Rent was on Broadway many, many years ago. And I stood in line at this cattle call. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm missing circle time.
Oh.
And I was like, and I remembered it was either the next day or like a really small window. I was on the phone with Drexel to apply for their master's program. So it was really, so it was either music therapy or, like I said, I wanted my name on a marquee. And how quickly it changed when you, like I said, when I won a taste of what music therapy looked like. And then when I got a taste of what the reality of life in musical theater was going to look like. And I just knew, I knew where I was supposed to be.
That's where your heartstrings were pulling you back.
Yep. That's when I knew it's, and it's funny, like I love, people will often say, even when I'm doing music therapy, they can tell there's a musical theater part of me still.
Yeah.
So that never really went away, but I knew exactly where I was supposed to be. Plus I'm a terrible dancer. Like, you don't want to I really had no hope on Broadway.
But to see you in therapy, you have so much, like you put so much energy and enthusiasm into it. So I can absolutely see that piece of you, that theatrical piece. So that's neat. That's a cool story. So, okay. Well, just for the audience, you and I met, I think 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I lose track of time, but you are my son's music therapist and have brought like so much to his world. And he's been doing music therapy, I think, for 7 years, like for a very long time, and has always loved it. He's always been a music kid and drawn to it. And we've been able over the years to like really broaden his musical repertoire, which is so cool because, as you know, he literally loves like anything you put on.
Yes.
It's just pretty amazing.
I love it.
And it really is like, we have, what do you call it? Spotify, not mixes, but Spotify,
like playlists.
Thank you. I'm like a foot in the 80s still. But we have these playlists and like sometimes they get all jumbled. And then so like 1 second, he requests the 70s, 80s playlist and we put that on and we're listening to like Bob Seger and the Grateful Dead. And the next thing you know, Eminem comes rolling on.
Sounds like my playlist.
Just like such a like broad spectrum of, music. And he got upset with me this morning on our coffee ride because I turned off a Grateful Dead song. Just like, I just wasn't paying attention. I like skipped it. And he was just like, I really wanted to hear that song, So I was like, I'm so sorry, Colin. I that was mom's bad. I missed the cue on that. I'll I turned it back. I honored that request because he wanted to hear that dang song.
Yeah. Well, think about it when we're in the car and somebody turns off. I mean, it's the same. Like I know if somebody talks in the middle of a song that I like, I'm like, oh, no. Can we wait?
True. It's the worst when somebody talks through a song.
Yes.
Like, okay, now I'm going to have to listen to that again.
And the wonderful thing too about, and it's funny, I just was thinking about this with Colin's extensive playlists. He also likes to revisit his greatest hits. So there'll be something that I haven't sang in a while, but I'll just bring it back into music therapy for some odd reason. And it's like it never left. And that makes me, I'm sorry, there's a phone ringing in the background.
No worries. this is real life. So,
Yeah.
right. Like
Yeah.
I never wanted to make this a, type of podcast that was like, so put together like a perfect show. Like this is just real life.
Yeah.
We're having some hard conversations, but some, really awesome, empowering, happy conversations too. So we'll let the phone ring, right?
Although it is a landline. If it's
That's great.
Isn't that great?
We are still in the 80s a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yes, we are.
So the one point I wanted to bring up that is so important to me to like just highlight for the listeners is that Miss Katie was such a angel during COVID because everyone experienced the same thing where the world came to a crashing halt and we had to stay home. But for our kids who have differing needs, it was even more impactful. It's like everything in their world is magnified by 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 in some cases. And to know that they could not go to school and have that routine and that predictability and that organization and structure that they're used to was very, very difficult on all of them. Mm-hmm. And Katie, you just gave us the greatest gift by going live at noon.
Yep.
You were
without
so
my shoes.
Yes, barefoot. You were earthing. I love it. But you were so dedicated and enthusiastic every day. And I know it had to be hard on you to be home every day and have your own things going on, but you kept showing up for our kids every single day and did 30 minutes of music therapy live on Facebook. And it just gives me chills talking about it because it was the greatest gift. And then sometimes Colin and I would listen to it like 2 and 3 times that day just so we could see you and just, so he can engage with you because you're very important to him in his life. And I know how it helped so many other kids because I've talked to their families, and it was one point of routine and predictability and such a wonderful highlight for them every day.
It's funny. When we went home on that Friday, it was, and I and then we found out we were staying there for a while. And even thinking back to it, I still have this pit in my stomach because I can remember running and realizing that if my day had no structure and I felt this sense of like, oh my, like, what do I do? And then I thought of, our munchkins, and I was like, when your day, structure is safe, right? So when something is predictable and structured, it's safe. And we know as adults, that got taken from us. Yeah. So, I just remember thinking, for my own sake, I went live, saying like, it benefited me to do what I do. And was just and I was so happy with the response that it got because, it started with a few kids and then toward the end, there were quite a few, but to me, it didn't matter. It was just, I knew that structure and that was so important to me. And I just missed them. So I was like, well, at least they can see my face, so I'm so glad that it had the impact that it did. Cause I know it was something that I looked forward to doing every day.
Yeah. And even though I know going live is a very strange experience.
Yeah. It's a little stressful, isn't it?
So thank you for doing it because I know it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't see anybody, but they can see me. It's very vulnerable, I think. But what I think also is cool is that you could see our names and you could see that we were sending you so many hearts and thanking you and that we were watching you the whole time and that you just made our day, really. And you're right. It did start as like a small group, probably like within our school. Yeah. But then like there were other states because like, I have family members in other states. And then I think even a few folks from another country joined it. It was, you reached a lot of people and, we're just grateful that we had you during that time. And it was, it was just another thing. It was just helpful during even the weekends, to replay those lives. And anyway, so I just can't thank you enough and highlight that enough. I have so much gratitude to this day for that.
Thank you. Like I said, it meant the world to me to do it. And I know it did a lot for my heart. So I'm so glad that it helped people as well, because it did a lot for my heart.
Good. I'm so glad. Healing all around.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, communal healing, we still need it. I mean, probably more than ever right now, but during the time it was just, there's different stages of healing, right? So we all needed a certain thing during that time. And now we need other things during this time. And thankfully we can all, be together in person again. So I wanted to ask, who inspired you and shaped you as a music therapist?
Oh, that's a really good question. I love Oliver Sacks. Even before, so I loved reading. Even before graduate school, I read some of Oliver Sacks' work from The Awakening. My voice as a music therapist came from, I think, the idea of every time I read these books and I read about the magnificent thing that the brain is, and then all of this ways that we can unlock things in the brain. I think I always wanted to find a midpoint between being excited and being who I am as a person, but then remembering that line of like, why am I here and why am I doing what I'm doing? Now the neurology, the music neuroscience has certainly grown over, the research has grown over the last 10, 15 years. But I think for me, it was always this idea of like, how do you navigate this Miss Katie with the fact that I don't want to be, I'm not the music lady, if that makes sense. But I think who I am as a therapist was really shaped by, like I said, who I am as a musician. So I'm a singer. So that was my primary instrument. So I needed to learn to play a guitar to support that. It was shaped by the fact that I spent many years engaging people on stage. So I spent many years making music for people, not necessarily with them. And then how to navigate that with this idea of like, but you have to give validity to what you're doing. So you have to be this bright, engaging person, but you have to be able to, at any moment, articulate the importance of why you're doing it. I worked with phenomenal music therapists. I had a lot of role models throughout my schooling. And I'd like to think that I picked up pieces from all of them, but I've also felt very, very secure in who I am as a therapist, really emerged out of who I am as a person, as a musician, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So like in terms of musicians, who did you love to listen to, like when you were growing up? Like who were your influences in that way?
So I think I'm a little bit of an old soul. Is Joan Baez was a huge influence for me. Joni Mitchell, Dar Williams. So like the female singer-songwriters, the poets. And then I also was hugely influenced by people like Sarah Brightman, who played the original Christine in The Phantom of the Opera. The big Barbra Streisand. I loved Barbra Streisand. So I love the big stage personalities as well. So in terms of, that was pretty much my main influences. I mean, I can remember in college, people are listening to a bunch of rock bands, and I would take that and I would sing it in this very operatic music theater voice. And people were like, no. I think it was probably, like I said, those singer-songwriters coupled with those great female performers.
Well, I love that skill that you have, or that take that you have on music, because, one of my big things as a parent. We've had so many conversations over the years about how strongly I believe that we should meet the child with age appropriate material. And so you can sing a song, you can swap out the words for whatever it is that you're trying to teach, which I think is a really beautiful thing that you do, because to be honest, and I've observed a lot of programs over like the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
What I have seen in the past is just sort of music only presented in the most childish presentation.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep. I cringe inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not meeting them where they really are.
So, and that's that makes me sad, because, music is just this beautiful medium to reach someone where they are, when they need it, and in the way that they need it. And we have to be, and it's funny because my mom is a nurse. My mom has worked with individuals with special needs for her career. And I always watched how my mom engaged individuals with special needs.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the one who very much was very influential in the way of the importance of navigating chronological and developmental age, because there can be quite a difference between the two,
Sure.
but you have to honor both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't think of a better modality than music to be able to do that. To be able to take, if you're happy and you know it, and turn it into power chords. You can still get, touch your head, touch your nose, put your arms up, but you can do it in a way that musically it's engaging to the child. You can still get the need met, and it really honors, the chronological and the developmental age of a kiddo while you're working on a goal. Or, like I said, I love changing the words to things.
Yeah.
So taking a song and just, making it, like I said, making it age appropriate, because, that's one of the beauties of music, is so many ways it can be adapted. And there's the difference between making music for someone and making music with them.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Valid point. I love that.
But it's, I really struggle sometimes with, when I hear, whether it be music therapists or related service professionals using music, they're using music, and I think that's wonderful. But if it's a children's song and you're using it with a teenager, it's just not.
I feel inappropriate.
Yeah, and it's done with the best intentions. There's no malicious intent. It's meant, But again, it's one of those things where, well, okay, but we have other options,
And I think I feel so strongly about this as a mom, because I think it's disrespectful and insulting to their intelligence and their soul and their being. And I absolutely, truly believe in presuming competence always. And not every situation, it's not a black and white issue. There's a lot of gray there. Mm-hmm. Now, with 100% absoluteness, what my son understands, and it is everything. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that teaching him is not going to be tweaked or adapted.
Right.
But I'm saying that he understands. So let's honor that, right? And what I also want to say, because I do recognize that people have severe brain injuries for lots of reasons, and may not be able to. I'm not a neurologist, so I'm just speaking as the mom who does a lot of reading and research and talks to a whole lot of people, including neurologists.
Yeah.
I just think that, they might not be able to like recall all the music that, you know, that could be a part of the repertoire, or they might not be able to reach it, but it's also no, in my opinion, reason to sit there and play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on repeat.
Right.
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 So let's empower them with music, even if it's just instrumental or classical to get started, and feed their mind, feed their soul. And what I also know, you know this more than I do, because you know the science better than I do, but what I do know is enough science to say that, one, it is the universal language that we all can relate to and understand. Yeah. And that, two, even with Alzheimer's, our loved ones who are suffering from that may not remember a lot. But if you put on music that they have not heard for 30 years, they remember it.
Every word.
And I think it's fascinating.
Yep.
And that gives me chills just saying, and I've just saying out loud, that right there is enough for us to say, we have to keep honoring that within our kids who are doing this type of therapy, but also, stroke victims and all of the people that are suffering from any kind of traumatic brain injury.
When we have, like I said, I listen to Oliver Sacks talk about music. When you have a neurologist who has had, as famed as he is in the field, says nothing activates the brain as extensively as music. We can talk about how music is linked with the hippocampus, which is where we find memory. So that's why when you go into an individual who's suffering with various forms of dementia, and you sing songs from their teen years, despite the atrophy of the brain, that there's this little pearl that is the music of their childhood or adolescent years. And it's like I said, when you hear a neurologist say, it's the most profound non-chemical medication. That's one of my favorites.
Amazing.
And so again, it's one of those things where one is it's the music, and two, it's the and then it's also then the adaptations of the music. Depending on the need of the individual. But yeah, so when you hear that, why not do everything we can in our power to empower our children through a modality that activates the brain more extensively than anything else? I get so excited I lose my words.
Like I'm trying to make sense of it as a layperson. Not make sense of it. It makes perfect sense to me, but I'm trying to find almost sort of analogies, but I'm thinking, I'm imagining a neurologist doing a brain scan. Yeah. And so what I imagine is when they turn the music on, that, yes.
So we used to think, and there's the thing, if you look at a brain under MRI, and you look at it while a person is perceiving or engaging in music, every area is it's lighting up. Versus what we used to think was when we saw a picture of the brain, we used to see this picture where they would put one hemisphere with the bright colors, that's the artist, that's the creative, that's the music. And then we'd have the left hemisphere being the very linear, very logical. And so that used to be the idea that right brain, creative musician, left brain was logical, linear. And it's not the case anymore. It's actually, everything is very much integrated. So like I said, when you see a brain under MRI, listening to music, it's lit up everywhere.
It's so powerful and so beautiful. In fact, so Colin does some home therapies, and they're new skills for him that he's learning, but he's doing amazing. And one of the things that I have done, because he's so responsive to music, is I just play Right now we're playing, we're on Mozart. I kind of rotate it, but right now we're on Mozart, and I just played Mozart just low in the background while he's doing his therapy. And what I've noticed is that he's calmer and he's more focused doing the therapy. So it's just like little things like that. And then, you and I have probably experienced this, a song that we haven't heard since we were teenagers. And if I were to be like, Katie, what are the words to, we're still talking about the Grateful Dead, Scarlet Begonias, you probably would be like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But if we put the song on, I bet we could both sing it word for word. That's just an example. It could be any song.
I joke with people, but I can sing almost the entire musical score to a chorus line.
Oh,
So,
that's incredible.
Still, after so many years, or Phantom of the Opera or Les Miserables, because that's the music of my adolescence.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter how much time has gone by and it's like, you see, like you put on a song you haven't, like I said, you haven't heard for decades, and all of a sudden you remember every word and you're like, ooh, how did that happen?
That's just magical. And everyone needs that in their life.
Yes, everybody. Yes. Yes.
So like, you truly do need many, many clones. I want every single kid in the state of Maryland with a diagnosis to be able to tap into this therapy. And this is probably a good segue to talk about the IEP process briefly, because IEPs can be very intimidating for families. Early on, they were for me, but I've been in my lifetime been through hundreds of them for both boys, and I know what I want, and I'm a strong advocate. I mean, the parent is the strongest advocate for their child.
Yeah.
And so what happens over time is that you just get more confident, you understand your rights, you understand, I'm not saying that because I do truly have a rock star support team and IEP team for Colin. Like, I truly do. Like, every single person involved is a complete gem. But it wasn't always like that in the past. There was lots of things that we had to navigate, especially when every couple of years the school system would pop up and be like, oh, we want to bring them back to the county. And it's like, well, that's not going to happen. And this is why.
Right. Yep.
But a lot of newer families are very, very intimidated going into these meetings because they already know that in certain counties, and I'm not going to name counties, and and it's certainly not all of the counties,
right?
But certain counties in the state of Maryland, they are going to do everything they can to keep the child within the county at the home school. Mm-hmm. They have heard horror stories from other parents who have been intimidated and lied to by said members of the administration in that county. It's not necessarily the team, it's the administration usually. So I say all that just as a quick little overview that I want families to know that, like, literally anyone in Maryland, I can't speak outside of Maryland, maybe you can, but anyone in Maryland can request for a music evaluation.
Absolutely.
They don't necessarily have to have a music therapist in county. In fact, most don't. But you can absolutely request for a music therapy evaluation, and it is the law that they must give it to you.
So it depends on, it's like, for example, if a music therapy assessment is done at our school, I'm the one that's going to do it. But yes, but in a place that does not have a music therapist, they would have to contract somebody to come in and run the assessment.
Yeah. I just wanted to add that into this discussion, because so many people that I discuss, like, about music therapy, just, through conversation, or even some of the Facebook autism support groups, they're like, how did you get a music therapist? Or they're like, this exists.
Yeah.
My son loves music. My daughter loves music.
Yeah.
Like they don't know, because there's a ton of information out there,
Yep.
and there's not a linear checklist.
Right.
It's not an easy path. It's sort of like every family is sort of on their own to figure out what they need and want for their child for the best possible support and outcome.
And from where I sit, we certainly, it's still surprising to me when somebody says, "You do what?" You're a music therapist. And I wonder where that is. Is that an advocacy thing? Is that we just haven't spoken out as much about the research? Now, and it's interesting. So if a child shows an interest in music, there is no reason that a family cannot, I would encourage a family to request for a music therapy evaluation. Now, different places will do a different kind of evaluation. We use something that is called the Special Education Music Therapy Assessment Profile to look at, is a child eligible for music therapy services? Now, with that being said, an interest in music is not a prerequisite. So just because a child loves music doesn't necessarily mean that they become, that this assessment profile will show an eligibility. Okay. But there's no harm in running it.
Of course.
The other interesting part is, though, we've often thought that you have to love music to benefit from music therapy. And that's not it either. Some of the kiddos that I have worked with who have made some of the best strides in music therapy had a responsiveness to music, but it wasn't always a positive one. There were indicators in the music. It was like, "Ooh, I've got your attention now." And I see where, and it's funny, like I said, some of the kiddos I've seen made the most strides, had a big response, not always a positive one. But also encourage a family to use their instincts and then let the music therapist run the assessment. There are a few neurologic conditions that would contraindicate music therapy. But again, you cross those when you get to them. For example, like a dysmusia, which is like when music comes across as pain. But you would see that in a child.
Yeah.
You would see that the minute you put music on and they, it's like nails going down a chalkboard. And it's rare. But the other thing is, like I said, I would encourage any family to use their instinct to ask for the assessment, because there's no harm done in seeing if this is something that the child will benefit from. And again, in the public school system, we use the terms necessary and required.
Yes.
So you'll hear that. That's something I would say to families going through the music therapy assessment process. Is it necessary and required? And so those are the decisions that I have to look at the numbers and the data, and then look at the picture of the child as well, and to say to the team, yes, this is necessary and required. I think what's important about that too is you have to look at, I certainly always have to look at the data, but I also see a child.
Right.
And that overall responsiveness to music plays a big part in my assessment of necessary and required.
Yeah.
Although in my eyes, it's necessary and required for everybody.
And that's such an important thought that you put out there, because so many therapists and teachers are so data driven that that's all they see. Or maybe that's just the way they were trained. But once again, I have so much gratitude, because that's what makes you so special. And,
the data is an important piece in the work that we do. But I've often said, I call it like navigating the line between data and magic.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there are things that are not quantifiable.
Right.
Now, we can't build a field of music therapists who only come across with qualitative data. We certainly have to have the research and the data to support the work that we do. But I often feel that it is so critically important to say to a family, And I send notes home like this every once in a while. I send a note that says, this is what the log note says. Okay. The log note says in 3 of 5 opportunities, we did this but this is what really happened. and what didn't go in the log note is the fact that I changed the words and my friend was fine with it. Or that we held shakers for 5 seconds versus 2, or that we smiled the entire time. Or that when Miss Katie put both of her hands out, my friend grabbed both of her hands. Like, so there has to be a place for families and for therapists to see that this is one piece, and it's very important because we need to continue to pay for our services, but then this piece is also just as important to capture and to share because there's real growth over there too.
Yeah.
There's real growth when, yes, we accessed our voice output device to do this, and this. But if we smiled when Miss Katie changed the words, that also shows an increased amount of flexibility. It shows engagement. It shows, oh, wait, you changed the words? That is also a critical piece of being a child, of being a person, of being a part of the human experience. You can't put it in numbers, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense. How many adults do we know who do not have flexibility?
Right.
That's just one little example. Another thing that we can tap into is the executive functioning skills that so many adults struggle with, but that you were able to incorporate into your therapy. Mm-hmm. And it's huge. We need them in life.
I mean, it's funny. It's so the executive functions are in that prefrontal cortex, and that part of the brain does not fully mature until 25. So clearly, it's something that takes a lot of time. I still struggle with my executive functions. So when a munchkin, when somebody walks by the music room and they see me holding a sign, and it has a quarter note and an R, it means you hit the drum once and then you rest.
Uh-huh.
And somebody will say, wow, they're learning to read music. And I'm like, yes. I said, but also we have to control our impulses because boy, it is so fun to be able to sit and bang on a drum. But when you see an R, you have to regulate the impulses that want you to keep going to the expectations of your environment. So that is social regulation. You have to change what you want to do to adapt to your environment. We as adults have to change. So the executive functions that, like I said, when you walk by the music room, it may look like I'm just doing something crazy, but I think that those pieces, I mean, the ability to regulate, to control impulses, to tolerate frustration. And I could go on about this forever. Can you tell?
The last bit that I wanted to talk about regarding the IEP is that I just wanted to let families know, I know that there's different ways to do goals, but in our case, up until very recently, it has been presented where all of Colin's IEP goals, not all of them, but select IEP goals were piggybacked in music therapy.
Yes.
But then, and I don't know if you want to describe it, but you have goals for Colin that don't necessarily tie back to what's on his current IEP.
So I look at things like when I look at the IEP. So when you look at the document, there are certain areas that the team decides. Well, myself as well as the team decides are best targeted formally in music therapy, whether they be communication, motor skills. But what I do then is I have to look at that goal, and then I informally target some of the things that we need to be able to do those things. For example, if we are targeting a communication goal, well, I also need to target then the social reciprocity or the frustration tolerance to be able to tolerate and persist through that exchange. And I can just do it in very creative ways.
Yes.
So I'm very fortunate that because, because music shares so many networks in the brain. So basically what you see is the goal. And then I take what I feel is the groundwork for that goal. And I target it through adapted lessons, those kind of things, because I feel that lays a really critical framework for what has to come next.
Yes, I love that. Once again, it's tapping into your creativity to be able to teach a skill. And I'm very open about our journey with Colin, and everyone who follows us and our journey know that he suffers from seizures.
Yeah.
And so what I have noticed most recently with the last couple seizures is that his fine motor skills, there's like this residual effect from the seizure that affects his fine motor skills. And so I brought that up specifically to tie it back to when you and Colin work on the guitar and targeting that, I guess you call it the 3-point.
I call it a tripod.
Okay, the tripod.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that he's holding the pick, strumming the guitar, and you're doing all the things. You're building up his tolerance, his, I guess, endurance for the repetition.
His postural control, because he has to sit up tall in order to hold the guitar.
Yes. Yeah. So thankfully, the residual effects of the fine motor skills aren't permanent, but it's almost like, for lack of a better word, I just describe it to people as like a seizure hangover.
That's the expression that I was going to use to describe it. It almost feels like a hangover.
Yes. And one thing that you do that is really wonderful that I think all phenomenal therapists have done in our experience is have such great communication with me, and you're like, work on this at home. And so we have been, you gave me a pick, you said, this is what we're doing, and this is what you need to do. And we're working on it, and you're working on it. And so we're not seeing the things you were struggling with post seizure.
I love looking at, if I look back a couple of months ago at what we were doing, and I'm speaking very much in our case, and what we're doing in music therapy, the fact that we were just tolerating holding that thing, to now it's incredible the way that because we work on it at school, we work on it at home, and music itself drives those changes in the brain that we get to, every once in a while you have to take a step and be like, oh my goodness, like, look how far we've come.
Yes.
And that's because and I give that credit to you and to families, because, this is also homework. It's also something that the more we do, the more we're going to generalize and we're going to master. So it's been exciting to see.
It is. It's so true. And even Grammy practices with them. It's awesome. So
I love that. And it's funny. I use a phrase, form follows function. So I don't just make something up. It's not like, well, this will be fun. It's what's the function. So what's the goal? And then the form follows that, meaning, I play guitar with my fingers. I've never held a pick in my career.
Yes.
But we're working on fine motor skills. We're working on a tripod grasp. So it works. The form followed the function. And he's doing great with it.
Yes, that's absolutely perfect. I love it. So we definitely covered a lot in our discussion. I could talk to you forever, Katie, because we're both passionate in our own ways. You as a musician, and me as a mom and an advocate, and seeing how much it's helped Colin, and how I just, I always said, after diagnosis and after grief and after acceptance, and that's never permanent, as you know, grief just spikes up every once in a while.
Yeah, it's not linear at all.
But after that initial, I said to myself, once I started advocating, if I'm advocating for my kids, I'm advocating for all the kids, right? This isn't a selfish advocacy experience. Statistics continue to rise in every single state. In Maryland, we're at 1 in 28 boys CDC is always at least 2 years behind, possibly 4. I haven't looked at that in a while. And the data they use is very much a cross section.
Yes.
So it's not accurate or reliable. It's just sort of I say it's an illusion. Don't state it as fact if it's not fact.
Right.
And so all the advocacy that I do is to help them all. Not all families are in a position to, write letters or make phone calls or advocate in every way. They have more children, or maybe it's just not in their personality,
right?
Or maybe they just are seriously having very difficult time just getting through the day, right? And I'm not saying I don't have those days, but I'm just saying that, the whole point of this podcast and this, community that I'm trying to build is very, very specific to making families feel less alone, giving them hopefully a tool that they can relate to. In the online support groups like Facebook, we have a really huge community in Maryland. And there's multiple pages and they're all pretty large. But what I have observed is that it tends to be geared towards the younger kids.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's great because they need all the support they can get. Those families need the support. Those early years were among the most desperate, devastating. I can't even find all my words to describe the early years. And then times 2. It was very hard. And as we know, autism is not like, it's not like a terminal illness. It's not like cancer. It's not like any terminal illness. I don't want to just, label it that. If it's not tangible and physical, people have a very hard time relating to it.
That's yes.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely.
So if you're not in the field or in the immediate family and see it day in and day out, people don't necessarily think to say, what can I do to help you?
Right.
Or can I take you out for coffee? Or can I make dinner for you? And our kids can't be watched. They can't be babysat easily. Right. So, and I bring all that up just to say the newly diagnosed families are going to find this out really quick, and it's awful. And I wish that there was something that we could do as a community to spare them from that trauma, but we can't, except find ways to continue to support one another. And so there very much is a need to continue to support those early years. But I felt there was a hole in the teenage years.
Yes.
And the transitional years.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
So there's still so many ways to support these families. And I am just so thrilled that we had this discussion, because this is a perfect way to support the kids that are going through this, who have this diagnosis. Whether it's just autism, we generally have more like diagnoses, more coexisting conditions. Anxiety, epilepsy, OCD, really falls in line with pandas, mitochondria dysfunction. I mean, the list goes on.
Right.
But music, once again, it's the universal language. And so let's bring that into the house first and give these parents empowerment to go ask for an evaluation.
And again, it's one of those things where, just the knowledge that this is another thing. This is a therapy, just like the other related services that can support your child. I would love every family that hears the sound of my voice to know that you have a right to ask for this. You have a right to find out from a music therapist, will your child benefit from these services? And sometimes the very basis of that is knowing that we exist.
That's right.
Knowing that music therapists exist. And we are also very much considered sometimes like an adjunctive therapy, like we're added on, but we're also a standalone therapy. This is just another way of working with your child. I would encourage any family that hears this to say to their advocate, to say to their team, I would like a music therapy assessment.
Yes.
Like,
perfect.
Follow your intuition and just ask, because we'll say yes.
Yes.
And then what worlds does that open? What doors does that open? Just the fact that we're going to ask for the assessment, and then we take it from there. And so I'm grateful to be here. And like I said, to be able to encourage families that we do exist, music therapists do exist, and we do have tools in our toolbox to help support your child and your family the best way we know how.
Yes. I think that's a perfect way to end our discussion. I'm just really very hopeful and excited for our listeners to hear this and just take it all in and hopefully ask for an evaluation.
Yes.
And let's keep this thing going. Let's keep changing and empowering. Music is endless. People are making new music every day. It's been around forever.
Yes.
Mozart and Beethoven did amazing things. I am actually going to put it in the music notes because I can't remember the actual name of the sonata, but the one that Mozart wrote specifically for 2 pianos that actually has science behind it, that it reduces seizures by 35%. It's mind blowing.
And and like I said, and again, if we think back to where I started as a music therapist, when I first got my degree, to now see I can't even wait to I can't wait to see what happens in the next 10 years. Like, what are we going to discover next? Because clearly the field keeps advancing and growing, and I'm lucky to do what I do. So
and we're so lucky to have you. And one day you should write a book.
Thank you. I would like, I don't know if I'd write a book, but I do love, I'm an intern supervisor, and I do love when I have the chance to have a student, because that's I think I get to write the book every time I have a student.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
That's one of my favorite things is to also have an intern come through and be able to watch them grow and explore and teach. And so I get to write a book every time I do that.
I love that. That's perfect. I'm going to see if Colin wants to say goodbye.
Okay. Say na 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 na. Hey, hey, hey. Goodbye. Oh, I gotta wait. I'll take that.
All right, Katie, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your weekend with your family.
Thank you. You as well. And tell Colin I'll see him on Monday.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Thank you. Talk
Bye-bye.
to you soon. Bye.